Good evening. I'm Jill Fagerlin. Welcome to the 2024 Distinguished Alumni Award reception for our high flyers. I was walking around and I forget we've already honored 30 people and we're adding 8 tonight. So it's been a 5-year journey for all of us. We missed out on COVID for a while, but we're back. Last year, Edna Thayer's daughter was honored. I don't know who was more excited, Edna or her daughter. We asked her if she would come up and say a few words about the high flyers. Come on up.
I was thrilled to be asked to give the welcome speech tonight, at least that's what I was told, for this wonderful event tonight. It's Falcon High Flyer Distinguished Service Recognition. I learned in school 1 or 2 years ago, or maybe a little longer than that a good speech has 3 parts. First, there's the introduction, where you say what you're going to say. Then there's the body of the speech, where you say it. And then there's the ending, where you summarize what you said. So this is my welcome speech. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Secondly, I want to thank some very special people. The first is Jill Fagerlin. It was about 9 years ago when she first had the vision. She was a dreamer that perhaps in Faribault we could add a different type of Hall of Fame. There are a lot of sports Hall of Fames around in high schools, but how many high schools do you know that has a Hall of Fame that honors people for their jobs or career or profession, in addition to ways that they give back to the community and humanitarian service? I know there are others, but I think it's really unique to have one in Faribault. She found some people who had the same vision, agreed with her, and formed a committee. So she already honored them once, but let's give another big round of applause to everybody who's worked with Jill on a steering committee, on the selection committee, or any committee that has to do with this. Here we go. Next, I want to thank both the members of the community as well as the school system for the impact that they've had on these alumni and the support that they give to this event. When my daughter came here last year, she thought, oh, there'll probably be about 40 or 50 people there, you know, handful, some friends and family, and she was amazed last year at the turnout there was, and you know that this year there's even more. Isn't that wonderful, the way the community and the school system turns out and supports them, both financially and by attending? She included some teachers in her speech last year and was surprised to see that they were actually here, at least a couple of them. One of them was Shirley Norgard, and she thanked her for the way in elementary that she would welcome the students and give them a hug and make them feel safe and secure. Another in high school was Harvey Schultz, and he challenged her to not be a quitter and be the best that she could be. So I think it's very important that the teachers come and support the group as well as the school system and the community. Let's give a hearty round of applause for everyone who works in the community or the school system and helps prepare our graduates for the things that they have accomplished. And last but not least, there is an excellent list of alumni who will receive the honor tonight. I can't wait to hear all they have done and accomplished. Let's give them a round of applause and get on with the show.
We have 8 special people to introduce to you tonight. Our format is this. The person who nominated them will introduce them. Then the honoree will have a chance to say a few words. You have the booklet as your homework tonight to become more familiar with each honoree's accomplishments. Jane Draheim, you are on my list first, and she will be introducing our first honoree, Jeff Alstead. Jane?
It'll be 20 years this fall since I've retired, so I can now use these. It's 1970. It's the me generation. Looking inward and learning more about ourselves was important. Apollo 13 was launched. The Beatles split up. Voting age went from 21 to 18. And I won't mention the score of the Viking-Kansas City Chiefs Super Bowl game that year, but I will mention that Jeff Alstead was born into a loving Faribault family. As I reflect on Jeff, my former student, I see a theme of harmony. To harmonize, one must listen to different voices to create the harmony. Jeff has this ability. Perhaps attending all those barbershop quartet practices with his father established a love of music that has continued throughout his life. While at Faribault High School, Jeff found time to be a good student and an outstanding athlete in football, wrestling, and track. And when Michael J. Hansen, known for his astute typecasting, needed a specific character type in productions of Boyfriend and Rebel Without a Cause, Jeff joined the cast. When reflecting on his high school career, Jeff selects one moment as the highlight, when Gordy, as he was known to his teammates, received the Bruce Smith Award. Jeff attended St. Cloud State, finding time for football, and what became a life-changing and altering decision to sing in the choir. Because it was in choir that he met Gina. Gina got him through college and through choir, and their harmony continued beyond college when they married and raised 4 wonderful children. Jeff began his educational career as a special ed teacher. He became a director of special ed, an assistant principal, and a superintendent in 2 different districts. In 2017, he accepted the position of superintendent at the Owatonna Public Schools. Jeff continues to listen and bring harmony to his Owatonna community. An employee writes, Jeff can be with CEOs of large companies 1 minute and be rubbing elbows with kindergartners on the floor the next. He makes a person feel good after they have interacted with him. Early in his time in Owatonna, the high school experienced a racial incident. A member of the school board writes, nerves were raw and emotions were stretched thin. Jeff leaned in. He convened listening groups. His actions were cathartic in an important moment for the community. His true north is an unwavering belief that equality is providing every student what they need to be successful. Jeff's listening and harmonizing goes beyond his office walls. He is active in many community efforts and serves on the board of the Big Brothers Big Sisters of Southern Minnesota, and as their director writes, Jeff is an exceptional communicator and listener. Jeff demonstrates compassion, strong leadership, and the ability to see things from others' perspectives. Referred to as a transformational leader in his community, Jeff's pastor writes, whenever he has put his time and energy, positive change has happened. Our community has become a better place, especially for those on the margin. The governor of Minnesota even recognized Jeff's leadership when he chose to deliver his State of the State message 2024 from the auditorium of Owatonna High School. He stated, every once in a while you get an opportunity to make a whole lot of progress in a short amount of time. It happened here in Owatonna in 2019 when leaders in the private sector were brought together, listened, and decided it was time to be in harmony and build a new high school. Not just for the good of the community, Governor Walz continued, but for the good of their future workforce. The FHS Distinguished Alumni Award was created to recognize graduates of Faribault High School who have made distinctive contributions to benefit others through humanitarian activities and extraordinary personal and professional accomplishments following high school graduation. Jeff Elstead, your listening and your harmonizing have earned you an A+. Congratulations.
Here I thought that maybe the award went to, apparently it took a kid from Faribault to build a new high school in Owatonna, so. All jest aside, thank you so much. I am deeply honored to receive one of our high flyer awards. I'm very proud of my experience in Faribault. I want to recognize the other folks that are being recognized tonight as well. I'd like to thank the nominating committee, and particularly Jane Draheim, who believed in a high school kid that could do great things. Much of my life to be grateful for. My parents, Gordy and Edith, as were mentioned. Yep, I did a lot of barbershop quartet singing. I started when I was 5. Sang with the Lakelander chorus here, loved every moment of that. They'll always be my first influence and inspiration for helping people. Not sure my parents ever passed up an opportunity to help. Whether it was my dad filling somebody's fuel oil tank at 2 o'clock in the morning because their furnace went out. Maybe he was filling up one of Tip's pieces of equipment that he was working on. He was, yeah. Or my mom making a pan of her famous bars for whatever event was happening in the church basement of First English Lutheran Church. They instilled in me a love for people and serving people. I often ask my staff that there's a Mount Rushmore of influential people in your life. And of course, my Mount Rushmore has many of you sitting in this space tonight, but I'm going to ask you for a show of hands. How many of you would put a teacher or a coach or an administrator on your Mount Rushmore of most influential people? Put your hands up. That's the impact that educators have, right there. When I think about who is on my Mount Rushmore, there's many, many more than 4 here that are here tonight. So many teachers, coaches, administrators, and community members that I'm grateful for being in my life. But I'd like to mention a few. First off, and by the way, I can't call people by their first names yet. It will always be Mrs. Fearson. Mrs. Fearson was my 4th grade teacher. She taught me how to truly care about each and every student and how kindness can be the greatest relationship builder. Thank you. My 5th grade teacher, Mr. Rick Bleichner, he shared a love of learning with me that was contagious. It may be because he spent many lunch hours with me because I hadn't completed all of my schoolwork, but he believed in me. Randy Schaefer, my high school choir director, was also one on my Mount Rushmore. Taught me how to step out of my comfort zone and not let anyone put me into a box. You can be anything you want to be if you don't limit yourself to what others think about you. My coaches, Dave Henry, Jim Tetzloff, Charlie Madsen, who is here tonight, and Harvey Schultz, who's here tonight, pushed me always to be my best. Whether it was one more rep, whether it was one more lap, they always made me do more, and they knew I was capable of doing more, and for that I'm grateful. My entire experience in the Faribault Public Schools was top-notch because I knew that every person that worked with me and my friends cared about kids. When I left for college, I wasn't sure exactly what I wanted to do because my dad made pumping gas look so fun. However, my mom wanted something different for me. But I knew early on I wanted to be a helper. I wanted to make a difference. I'm now finishing my 31st year as a public educator and would not trade a moment of my professional career. Whether I've served as an early childhood special ed teacher, speech and language pathologist, coach, principal, or now superintendent, I've always learned from the great experiences I have had, these amazing opportunities to hopefully make life just a little bit better for the students that I serve. Although the journey hasn't always been easy, I've had the best partner in the world. My beautiful wife and best friend, Gina, of 31 years. She's also an educator. and keeps me grounded and not to carry too many errors as the big shot superintendent. I love you for that, Gina, and so much more. I was also blessed with 4 beautiful children, Kirsten, Derek, Kaya, and Micah, who all graduated from Owatonna High School. With that, I took a picture with my oldest son with my Faribault leather jacket. Yes, it still fit me at that time. It's crazy to think if you'd have told me when I was 17 I was going to be the superintendent of Owatonna, I'd have told you you're crazy. But here I am and loving the Owatonna community as well. My children have taught me much more than I ever taught them about loving and how magical it is to be called Dad. In closing, I want to thank the nominating committee again for this honor and the Faribault Public Schools and the entire Faribault community for believing in me and sharing this honor with me. Thank you.
Thank you. Introducing our next honoree was supposed to be Jake Ennebeck, but he's not feeling well. So subbing, we have Leah and Eric Hendrickson. Let's give them a hand.
Hi, my name is Eric Hendrickson, and I am the son-in-law of Tip Ennebeck. So I'm stepping in here, assistant captain role. But in addition to being his son-in-law, I've had the honor of working with him for going on 26 years now. And not only, he's been a tremendously supportive person to me, just individually and our children as well, but just the mentorship that he's given me on the business side has really been unbelievable. Can't believe it's been going on 26 years now. But I would say just meeting and knowing Tip, the guy likes to build things, big things. So in addition to just the massive projects that Ennebeck Construction has done over the years, and there's a lot of them you can read about in the pamphlet, but he not only just builds tangible things, but builds businesses, and I've been just in awe of seeing him over the years. It's over a dozen different companies that have kind of evolved over these last 25 plus years. And just the biggest thing that he likes to build, though, it's people. That's the one thing I'd say if you had to ask Tip what he takes most pride in is just the unbelievable opportunities he's given people, including myself, to grow careers and to achieve goals, just personal goals, financial goals, you name it. It's amazing. So he is the one person who proves you can be a really good business person and you can be a really good person. They're not mutually exclusive. He is a living proof of that. And he literally, if you add up the people that have worked in the organizations, I was kind of talking to him today, like, how many has it been? It's been several thousand. When you look at Ennebeck Construction over his tenure there and all the different tradition companies, it's massive. And if you talk to the people, just his leadership and just the way he goes about things, putting people first, putting his clients first, putting his employees first, he comes last. But he always said that, money and success is a byproduct of taking care of people. And that is just an amazing thing, and I've been just truly honored to have him as part of my life and to be just a tremendous mentor. He talked about the Mount Rushmore. He's on mine.
I'm Leah Hendrickson, Tip's daughter. Just congratulations to everyone else receiving the award tonight, and thank you to the committee and everyone who did the dinner and did a wonderful job with that. Sorry, can you hear me? Yep. Okay. So when I think of my dad, I think of phrases and words. 3 of his favorite words are faith, hope, courage. And one that I'm going to pick out is hope. And what I'm learning as I get older from him, which he's always demonstrated for his whole life, is that hope is a verb. And we can all sit around and say, I hope that these people are going to be able to afford housing. I hope that this woman that's struggling with her household is able to get help. I hope this veteran is able to get the support that he or she needs. But if you don't act on your hope, nothing is going to happen. By him acting on his hope, he's been able to financially and time-wise support community housing projects, community action projects, Grief Club, Hope Kids, Whispers of Hope, every third Saturday, which supports veterans, and a place called The Ranch. You can check these all out in the pamphlet. But I'm just very proud of him for putting his thoughts into action. And he is a person in his life that is giving more than he's taking. And if we all did that, it would be a very different world. Thank you.
I did spend a year as a teacher, and I wasn't very good at it, so I knew when to get out. But I have a lot of faith in teachers that teach and coach. What do you want me to do?
Just stay close to it.
Yeah,
Okay, stay close. That's what Diane says. Well, I just think, I'm sure it's hard for my daughter to talk about me and my son-in-law, but just thank you for your kind words. Now, I think you've heard enough about me. Let's talk about Faribault, okay? I grew up in Faribault on the east side. Our family moved to Faribault from Spokane, Washington when I was 6 years old. My father, his construction outfit out there, they were working on air bases during the war, and they partnered up with a company that was in Roseau and had bid a job on the Lindale Highway and gotten the job, and they brought our group back. So that's where we lived out on the Grant farm for a long time because you couldn't get housing then. Both families, Alley family and Annabeck family. My dad's business was near and dear to him. He did a good job, but basically at some point, after I was basically through with college, I spent a year in Great Falls coaching football and teaching, and he was at that point having some real health problems. So I came back and jumped in really deep to try to figure out how to make it work, and so we did, and it was a lot of hard work, but it was really worth it. And what really made it worth it the most was I found somebody that I married that when we moved to Northfield, taught school, and she was under the gun all the time because I was out of the house at 4 o'clock with a big lunch box full of lunch and home dirty at 9 o'clock at night. But I had somebody as an ally on the job, that guy sitting right down there, Gordy Bauer. He was a classmate of mine, a teammate of mine, and a career employee. He worked for us for his whole career. And we have, I can't tell you how many career employees we've had in the business that we're in. They jump and they jump and they jump. But we've been so lucky to keep people and skilled people, and that's what's been our success. Also, we had somebody named Wes Ball who tried to work for us for a little while. We hired him, but he was more independent than I was. So he went back to being our public accountant, and we used him to do our stuff anyway. And he was really good at what he did, kept me out of a lot of trouble. So in Faribault, you know, when we moved up and lived on the east side, it was a great neighborhood for kids. A lot of my teammates lived close to us, families, and what I really appreciated was the good teachers and the coaches. Jim Warren was somebody that, when you were, somebody said his daughter was here.
Yeah, she's over there.
Where is she? Okay, so you maybe know this about your dad, but he was somebody that everybody that was in 9th grade or 10th grade or lower, when they saw Jim Warren come down the hall, they'd get out of the way. Because he could be pretty rough, pretty mean, but he adopted me. I was just a little squirt, and I wanted to play football as bad as I possibly could, and he did a lot for me and believed in me, and he and Leonard Plotnick, Jim Christian, our coach, they made a whole difference in my life. Wes Ball was the same way. He was our accountant and kept us out of problems, and very smart. A lot of credit goes to Diane, my wife, who puts up with a lot of stuff. And we're lucky enough to have 2 children that thrill us on the football field, the dance line, tennis, hockey, all kinds of sports. We're still chasing 7 grandkids that are in college, and a lot of hockey players, and it's been really fun to do that. I think the thing that Eric talked about is, I'm lucky enough, we've been lucky enough to have all kinds of employees that work for Annabelle Construction, and Annabelle Construction is 118 years old. This is our 119th year of continuous operation. My grandfather started in Warren, Minnesota, and we're doing lots of stuff now still, bigger projects. We did all the work at the Mall of America. This is the Apple Valley Zoo. We built many freeways. But we couldn't do it without employees like Gordy Bauer. He's a full-time, year-round, lifetime guy, and we've had so many of those people. And it's just what it allows me to do now, because my son and Eric are kind of running the businesses, but I've gotten into the charity world, the nonprofit world, and what we're trying to do there is take the stuff that we've learned, the efficiencies that we've learned in the business, how to connect with people, and infuse it into these charities so that they operate with the heart, but also with the head. And what we've been able to do is we have several groups of veterans that we're helping at different organizations. And we've gotten them to come together and basically work with each other, and they get done more. They get more people that they help, and they house a lot of people. They work with mental health with them, and it's just pretty interesting to be on that side of it. And I can do that now because of people who work for us and still do a great job. And then we have all these other businesses. We started nutrition companies. We have a bank. We have a mortgage company. We have a title company. Vertical integration. So we get a dirt job, leads to building of houses. We got 4 home building companies. That means financing. We got Nutrition Capital Bank. Okay, we got a mortgage company. And if we're lucky and we keep going, it all works. And just want to thank you guys. Faribault has been a big part of my life. And what can I say? Just going to keep trying.
Thank you. Isn't it interesting to hear what everybody's up to? For jewelers, has been a longtime friend of Roger Koopman's and wants you to meet him. Virgil, are you ready?
Ready. Thanks, Jill.
You bet.
Somebody like Jill always keeps things going. You need that person with the smile and keeping this committee going in the right direction. I want to congratulate all you alumni too, and several of the comments that were made, I couldn't help but think of parents were the first people really involved with all of you guys. Your parents did a good job, and the community did a good job, and certainly the schools had a part in you becoming distinguished people. And we're proud of you. We are, every one of you. Every one of these distinguished alumni, the Faribault community is proud of you. And you are representing Faribault well, and we appreciate that. When my wife and I moved to Faribault, way back in 1966, we moved to a house on the east side. And Kip was on the east side, right? Yeah? Okay. Some of the first people to come up and meet us were Roger and Kat Koopmans. And I understood later that at one time he was the honorary mayor of the east side. I don't know if Kip was the honorary mayor. Were you an honorary mayor? No? Okay. Anyway, I'm going, what's the Faribault east side and what's an honorary mayor? And then I said to Roger, I never heard the name Koopmans before. Well, he said, it's Dutch. And if you ain't Dutch, you ain't much. We're not Dutch, but we're still lifelong friends, so I appreciate that, Roger. It didn't take long visiting with Roger and Kat to find out about Faribault and horticulture. Of course, they have the big garden, and we were living on the edge of the Faribault Peony Garden, so we knew there was something big there. And then the big Farmer Seed and Nursery, which is no longer there. And Brand Peony Farm was right behind us. Andrew's Nursery was right across the street. And then the Lehman Gardens, that was a big draw in the fall of the year. There'd be thousands of people that would come to Faribault. There would be busloads of people that would come to Faribault to see the mums. Hybridized right here in Faribault, and Roger worked with Kak's dad, Dick Lehman, who owned the Lehman Gardens. I nominated Roger because of all that stuff you see in the booklet there. And I visited with Roger a couple times, and he and I were both trying to figure out, I think me more than him, how I could put all of that stuff into this introduction. And Roger was trying to figure it out too. So you have to read that, and you'll have to ask him questions if you want to talk about it. But one of the things I always observed about Roger was he had this serving attitude. He seemed like he was always willing to help people with their gardens, with, oh, you want some more hostas, or you want some lilies, or, yeah, I could help you design that a little bit, and Roger was always very willing to do that. I know he was very active in his church. One of the things that he really helped Trinity Lutheran Church accomplish was to build that big church, and he had a big part in designing that church and getting that project done. Beautiful, functional facility, all in one level. He's been in many of the Faribault clubs, Rotary Club, Historical Society, just to name a few. I hope he's going to talk about his music exploits, because that would take another hour, I think. So don't talk for an hour, Roger. Okay. I think Roger's sort of like Tip in a way, different from most of the distinguished alumni, because he spent his whole life here in Faribault. And he's devoted his life and his wife to this community, doing things in the community, helping people, and serving. That's one of the things I've always seen from him. So he's a hometown boy, served in his community his whole life, except for a few years when he was in Korea, and he had a distinguished service there, as you can read. So thank you, Roger, for your service, and come on up.
Well, it's an honor to be here in this distinguished time of the year. I tell you, this is wonderful to be elected to this. And I'd like to thank all the people that were involved in this project, and I want to congratulate all the new inductees. Well, here I am, a local boy who got a firm start in life through the Faribault school system. And I wanted to stay in Faribault, and especially on the east side, because the oxygen up there was so much better than the rest of it. Well, I grew up in the best of times during the 30s and 40s when the big bands were at their pinnacle. The big band era was from 1934 to 1946, and everyone was dancing. There was 500 bands crisscrossing the United States from one end to the other. It was incredible, and everyone was really moving. And all the men were dressed in suit coats and shirt and tie, and the women all wore dresses those years. And man, could they move their sacroiliums around and dance. In those years, the people were about this skinny, and now they're about this cherubic. It's a little different. Well, I grew up in the east side. I went to Washington School. There were 2 classes in each room. And I was in the 5th grade, and the teacher says, is there anyone interested in playing an instrument? I says, yes, I'd like to play the trumpet. And Stan Henning said he would too. So the next day, a man came up, his name was Mr. Pearson, and he, and he brought a trumpet up. Am I getting too close to trumpet on?
No, I think so.
And he taught us how to do the nomenclature, just how to hold the trumpet straight out, how to do your fingers, and then don't blow your cheeks out when you play the trumpet. Well, he came up once a week and taught us how to read music good and also how to play the trumpet. And by the time I got out of the 5th grade, I could play the trumpet and read music good. Well, after that, the teacher says, is there anyone that would really like to play the piano? Holy man, I said, sure, I want to play the piano. So two other gals wanted us, so they got us out of the classroom and whipped us right out of the classroom into the hallway, and she pulled something off the wall about this big and about this wide, and undid it. There was a piano keyboard. And so she put it down in our desk, and she says, now here's middle C, and here's the left hand for the bass, and here's the other one. Now we all play D. Well, when I played the D, there was no sound coming out of that cardboard. So I says, that's enough of that. So later on, I took piano lessons and really used to play a lot of boogie-woogie when I was in high school. Well, I was a sophomore in high school, and right away, the teacher says, I'd like to have a tuba player. So I said, sure, I'll play the tuba. So the next 3 years, I played the tuba in the Faribault High School. And after this, I was watching these guys that could really play music. We're 12 guys. So I said, would you guys like to play in a swing band? Oh, my gosh, yes. So I went to Dietz's music shop. I ordered 17 different good orchestrations. And I brought them home, or I waited for them, and then I made my own stands, and we practiced in our basement. And I said, fellas, come up after supper. We'll work for 2 hours twice a week for a month. Well, I could see the progress we were going, and when we got to the end of the month, the band sounded just as good as when the big bands were playing during the years. It was phenomenal. And I really thought that was great. Well, anyway, let's see what happened after that. Then we had a job at the National Guard Army, and it was all written up and everything. The Buddy Koopmans and his engineers to swing. So we played there, and there was a lot of room to play because that was big. But we had a good crowd. The only thing, the next day, 2 men came up to my father's house and mother's and says, your son can't play in the National Guard Army because he's got to join the Union. So we all joined the Union. I got my picture in the paper with the big Union man, and that was it. That was enough of that. And after that, we played in another place down the Melody Mill. I don't know if you ever remember that, but anyway, that was on the end of 4th Street, and it was a place for strictly dancing. And man, the people dancing. The only thing about it, every week we played, it got bigger and bigger, and pretty soon they had to get a bouncer because there were so many people. Then KDHL came to town and asked if we could play in the national, we could play at 10 o'clock on Saturday mornings. Well, that was the ultimate, that was the preeminent, my gosh, to play on the radio station. So we got there a little early, and we started out, and the man put his finger down. That's when I started at 10 o'clock. I played my theme song, Man at the Horn, and I was amazed at how many people came in and watched us, because you could come right in and there was music parked right outside. They had big windows so you could look in. Well, after that, let's see, what after that, then we played for the the Medford prom and another prom. And after that, then just before we graduated, the student council asked us if we could play the big gym for all the kids and all the teachers, and so we did it, and that was fantastic. We were only supposed to play an hour, and there was such an ovation that we could have played for 8 hours. Right after that, I went to University of Minnesota. I only got a year and a half because the Korean War started out. And so I got right down and ejected down to Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, and I spent my time down there in the basic learning down there from all the things that I did down there. And from there, I went directly to overseas, and I was there for first line. I was with the 73rd Combat Engineers, and I was in reconnaissance, and I was a sergeant. And after 15 months and three years, I got my orders to go home. And after that, I received the Bronze Star just as I was leaving, and I thanked them. And from there, I went to the capital and flew to San Francisco, and from there to Colorado Springs. I got discharged there, and then I got home. And that was it. It was a big time in my life, but that's how I started playing. And I had an orchestra for 60 years, and it was a wonderful thing to do that with a lot of good people. Okay, thank you so much.
Harvey Schultz has been a wonderful source for nominating high flyers. Tonight he has 2 candidates he wants you to meet. And as he comes up to introduce Carrie Gramsey Kremer, I hope I'm saying that right, please note his brand new jacket and slacks and ask him how he got them. Harvey, are you ready?
Thank you. I should probably tell you that when I put this suit on, sport coat on, to come over, it had Shaquille O'Neal's name on the inside of it, so I'm in good company with him, I guess. I had Cheryl Freund look at my tie to make sure it was tied the right length. There's a big story behind that. I'd like to say thank you to this committee. Over the years, I've had the honor of nominating a few people, and it is just such a wonderful thing for this district to have a committee like this, and the people that are sitting out here that are on that committee keeping up the work of honoring these graduates. I have not been a public speaker for a long time, and I'm probably not very good at it, or never was. But I hand wrote my notes, and when my wife asked me what I was going to say, I tried to read it and couldn't read the notes. So I typed them, and now as I stand here, there's one of 2 things wrong. Either I used too small of a font, or this lectern is not tall enough. It is my honor at this point to introduce to you Dr. Carrie Gramsey Kremer. Carrie is another young lady that was born in Faribault, raised in Faribault. I had her in math class at the high school. During those days, she was a wonderful math student. She was always prepared. She was a little quiet, but she was willing to participate in class discussion, which I liked, because she always had great ideas. And over the years, she was one of the very top students I've ever taught. She graduated as valedictorian of her class in 1992, and then went down to the University of Chicago, and after 4 years earned a doctorate degree in a BA in science, bachelor's degree. Then she went to the University of Minnesota. Here's where she earned her doctorate degree, and maybe more importantly, she met Dr. Matthew Kramer at the same time, and they have become husband and wife, and I'll talk about their family in just a minute or so. She had a 4-year residency and at the University of Florida in obstetrics and gynecology. I hope I pronounced those right, Gary. In 2004, they moved back to Minnesota, and both of them, as I understand, practiced medicine at Park Nicollet and Health Partners. I think it was in the booklet tonight. Carrie has literally delivered thousands of babies into this world, and that in itself is quite an accomplishment. They have a family of 3. Brad is 20, and he's in the university. I'm sorry, I forgot where he was at, but I knew at one time. Kate is 18, and she's in high school, and Liz goes to school in Prior Lake. And Liz is, if I didn't say, is 16 years old. She was born with a mutation of the STAG1 gene. And as a result, Carrie has become very involved and founded a group called the STAG1 Gene Foundation. And their mission is to provide education, advocacy, and research to families affected with the stage 1 mutation. She also gives of herself in the school districts near where they live and advocates for special needs students. She is active in her church and has started a group called Coops Troops. I'm not sure what's behind that. I'm guessing somebody's name was Cooper, but perhaps. And then she's involved with another group that I just heard about a minute ago called Hope Kids. Somebody, I don't know if Mr. Annebrecht brought that up or somebody mentioned that foundation. The other thing that's notable is Carrie has started a Facebook page that is called Lessons from Liz. And she has things on there that her daughter Liz has told them or said or done or whatever that has given more meaning to their lives. At this time, I am very proud to introduce Dr. Carrie Ramsey Kramer as a distinguished alumni of Faribault Schools.
Thank you. Good evening. First of all, I'd like to thank Harvey Schelt for nominating me for this award and for that introduction. I would also like to thank all of my family and friends who are here this evening. This is an incredible honor. In high school, I was voted most likely to succeed by my senior class. At the time, I remember having to do a photo shoot for the yearbook. Andy Hohentanner and I were given fake bags of money to hold for the photo. At the time, I was pretty sure that I knew what succeeding meant, especially after that photo shoot. In the years since high school, life has given me a different perspective on success. I'm going to repeat some of what Harvey said, but after 4 years of college, my husband Matt and I met during medical school at the University of Minnesota. In the years following medical school, we did our residency training at the University of Florida. During residency, we dealt with unimaginable levels of stress and sleep deprivation in the name of becoming great doctors. After 4 years of that, we felt like we had climbed a mountain, and our view into the future was wonderful. Surely we had achieved success. Little did we know that our greatest challenge still lied ahead. Within 4 years of completing residency, we had 3 children. We both had full-time positions in our chosen medical specialties back here in Minnesota. Our days and our nights were full, and we were tired, but our family was complete, our careers were on track, and surely now we had achieved success. Our youngest daughter, Liz, as Harvey mentioned, was born in 2007, and we would soon learn a new definition of success. Before she was even 1 year old, she was diagnosed with developmental delay. As a 2-physician couple who were trained to diagnose and fix things, we went on a quest to figure out why our daughter was developing differently. We thought that if we could find a reason, we could find the solution. Since then, she's been given many labels, including autism, intellectual disability, expressive language disorder, ADHD, scoliosis, and epilepsy. No level of education could prepare us as parents to handle all of that while maintaining busy medical practices. We had not yet found an explanation for her challenges, and as parents, we didn't feel very successful now. It wasn't until 2016, when Liz was 8 years old, that we discovered that she had been born with a mutation on her 3rd chromosome on a gene called STAG1. In the moment that we learned the news, we felt God telling us that she was exactly who she was meant to be, that our exhaustive search for an explanation was over, and that there was no fixing what God in His wisdom had planned for her life and for our family. We were told that this mutation was so rare that no one could tell us what to expect in the future. We were told that she would write her own story, and most importantly, that despite all of her challenges, her happiness was not at stake. In the years since her STAG1 diagnosis, we have become advocates for children with special needs and their families. I was a founding member of the STAG1 Gene Foundation, a nonprofit organization with a mission to make individuals with a STAG1 mutation known, valued, and equipped to meet their greatest potential. I've spoken at the Minnesota State Capitol in effort to improve insurance coverage for children with autism. And as Harvey mentioned, I also started a Facebook community called Lessons from Liz, where I share a little bit about our journey in an effort to inspire others with our unique perspective. In addition to Liz, we have raised 2 older children who have become fierce advocates for people with disabilities. Our son Brad is in his 2nd year at Colorado College, where he is a member of the Colorado College Disability Alliance, and his goal is to teach higher education. Our daughter Kate is a high school senior and plans to attend Baylor University this fall. She is fluent in American Sign Language, and what began as a desire to help her sister communicate has turned into a passion to help bridge the gap between the hearing world and the deaf and hard of hearing community. Brad and Kate's journey as special needs siblings has shaped them into remarkable human beings who will no doubt change the world. In August of 2023, after 23 years in medicine, I retired from my career as a physician. While some people might think that was a difficult decision, it was not. The mental and physical weight that physicians carry is something not often recognized. When special needs parenting was added on top of that, it felt almost impossible. While it was my privilege to care for women on some of their best and some of their worst days, and to fiercely protect the lives of unborn children, I honestly feel like I gave up my day job for my dream job of being a full-time wife and mom. So going back to my first question, what does it mean to be successful? What I've learned is that success is not how much money you have or how many patients you can see in a day. Success is accepting your child for exactly who they are. Success is celebrating your child's progress, even if it took years to achieve. Success is being married for 26 years and doing life together as a team, even as you face challenges that you could have never foreseen. Success is raising children who are happy and treat others with kindness. Success is being a voice for those who do not have one. Success is reaching out to a newly diagnosed special needs parent and reminding them that they are not alone. It is being kind to others because you don't know what struggles they might be facing. Success is making the best choices for you and your family, even if others couldn't possibly understand why. And success is finding something to be grateful for in all circumstances. At 16 years old, our daughter Liz has never said "Mom." But she is the most joyful and loving person that you will ever meet. She has made us better people, and for the gift that she is in our lives, I will always be grateful. To the teachers in the room, thank you. Please know that what you do every single day matters. Some of my most memorable high school teachers are in this room, and there are some who are no longer with us. Harvey Schultz, Cheryl Freund, Lydia Fitzgerald, Virgil Lures, Bernie Engrove, Bob Kaler, Bill Hohentanner, and Lois Varanish, to name a few, taught me that the educators who cared as much as they did were the exceptional ones. Please know that the time that each of you spent with your students was instrumental in their future success, not only as professionals, but as human beings. Congratulations to all of the honorees this evening, and thank you again to the committee for this recognition.
Our fifth honoree is Hung Nguyen, and unfortunately he could not be here for medical reasons. And I would like to share one thing that he put in the notes to me when we've communicated. He feels his being honored is a testament to his classmates' care and support throughout K-12 experience. At this time, I would like Harvey Schultz to come and introduce us to Hung Nguyen.
I thought before I introduced Hung, I would tell one more story about Ms. Freund. She and I taught in classrooms that abutted each other, and they both were classes where they taught cooking and family things like that early on. So there was a hole through the wall behind my desk and behind her desk, and our desks were back to back on the wall. And we used to talk in the hallway as the students passed, but we were always out there. And one day I thought it would be kind of funny. I took a 3x5 card and I wrote applause on it. And I put it on a string and I worked it through that hole in the wall. So it was behind her desk. And when I heard her get up to talk, I jerked the string like that, and all of a sudden I hear her kids clapping, and 2 or 3 times during the lesson I did that, and she came on the hall and she said, I must have done a super job today. I got 3 standing ovations. Sorry, Cheryl. I'm here to introduce Hung Nguyen. Hung was born in Nha Trang, Republic of Vietnam in 1967. His father was in the Air Force as I'm not sure the rank, general, whatever it is in the Air Force. And because of the war, his father fled Vietnam, and they didn't know exactly where he had ended up. But at any rate, a few years later, in 1995, Hung, who is now 8 years old, his mother, his 4 brothers, and a sister left Vietnam. They ended up at 2 or 3 or 4 places out in the Pacific Ocean. Had no idea where they were at, of course. They ended up coming through, I believe, California and then to Nebraska. And when they got there, they were reunited with his father. It was just an amazing thing. They had no idea it was going to happen. It just, in conversations and one thing another, they got together. Hung's father had a wonderful feeling about the United States of America. He asked all of his children to be in the service, and they all did that. Even the young lady was in the Coast Guards. I believe she went to the Coast Guard Academy. I could be wrong, but I believe that. When Hung graduated from high school, it was 1987, and he was the salutatorian of his class. And I was talking to him one time. He came up here and went fishing with us 2 or 3 times. And Hung said, you know, the strong faith that he had in his heart and the support that he gained from the community of Faribault and the educational opportunities he had here in Faribault helped him to very quickly assimilate into our community and become the citizen that he was. Now, Bob mentioned you had him in 5th grade. Yep. And he remembered him very clearly as being a wonderful student. So, as well as Hung's father, Hung himself had a wonderful feeling about the United States. When he graduated, he was appointed and went to the U.S. Military Academy at West Point. And while there, he played sports and worked out and all the other things that go along with it. But he also became an officer in an armored regiment of tanks. So he was the head guy saying, you go here, George, and you go there, Tom, and whatever. So he was the head of the tank regiment. Hung eventually earned a master's degree at Rockhurst University. And I thought when I first read this next thing that he was a black belt in karate, but maybe you know what this is. He earned a Lean 6 Sigma black belt, and that gave him the right to teach other people how to be administrators. Had nothing to do with karate, I guess, unless they don't listen to Hung was stationed in Germany for a while, and that's where he met his wife, Rose. They were married in 1996 and had 2 sons, one Victor, who is 24 years old, and the other Clark, who is 20 years old. Hung was involved in a lot of things other than just his job. He was a member of the Society of Military Comptrollers and became president of Toastmasters and of Advanced Toastmasters. I didn't know they had that, but he was president. In each phase along his life's path, Hung demonstrated his leadership and rose to the highest levels in those organizations. One day, as I said, he was here fishing and he had his boys here, and I think they were probably 6 and 8 or 7 and 9, something like that. And there was a game called Red Light, Green Light. Oh, all right. I hadn't heard of it before until that day. Well, the two boys were sitting in the back seat of the car and they had their hands up on the front seat, back of the seat. And I'm going down the street and all of a sudden one of them yells, red light, red light. I'm hitting the brakes. And I saw the light, but it was just, automatic. I was going to hit the brakes. And then he must have thought I fell asleep. I was, green light, get going. So I spent a good share of going out to the lake here and red light, and green light, and green light. It is indeed an honor for me to have introduced Hung Nguyen. As Jill said, he is not feeling well at this point. He certainly wanted to be with us. When I asked him about nominating him, he was just excited that he wanted to come and see everyone. But he sends his best. Joe's got some words here that he will share with you in a minute. One other thing Hung did with the class of 87, thanks Joe, he started a fantasy football league with some of his classmates. And as I recall, the last year, there was a young lady got into that, and she actually won the fantasy football league for the year, much to the chagrin of some of the other folks in the league. So at this time, it's my honor to have introduced Hung Nguyen. Thank you.
And Joel is here to accept the award and maybe add some good stories.
Hi, everybody. I'm Joel Olson. I'm a classmate of Hung's, and I've known Hung since we were in 7th grade. I think was when we first met, when we all came to the junior high from our elementary schools. I'm a proud graduate and also a proud principal of Faribault High School today. So I got double thankfulness for being up here. Hung and I played football together. We wrestled together. He was also on the tennis team, so he was a 3-sport athlete in addition to being a very smart person. We knew he was going to go on to do good things and great things, and the kindness in his heart overshadows the smartness and those things that he encompassed it in school. We worked together on the farm, out at the Tuzna farm. We spent many summers together playing softball, so I can say honestly that I know him in a really deep and personal way. He did want to be here. We've been chatting back and forth for the last few months, and we thought it might work, but just because of the treatments and things that he's going through, it just wasn't possible. But we're getting this videotape, so hopefully I do a good job, Hung, doing your speech. So here I go. I am humbled and honored to receive the Faribault High School Distinguished Alumni Award. I am so sorry that I can't be here in person with you this evening. I want to express my deepest gratitude to the pillars of support that have shaped my journey, my classmates from the class of '87, First English Lutheran Church, and the exceptional educational opportunities in Faribault. First and foremost, I'm indebted to the lifelong friendships and unwavering support of my classmates from the class of '87. Together we have shared countless memories, triumphs, and challenges, reinforcing the profound impact of community and camaraderie. Their friendship has been a constant source of strength, reminding me of the power of personal relationships in overcoming obstacles and achieving success. Equally significant in my journey has been the foundation of faith nurtured by the First English Lutheran Church. The teachings of compassion, service, and love have been my guiding principles, shaping my values and actions as a leader. The support and spiritual nourishment provided by my faith community have empowered me to navigate life's complexities with grace and resilience. Moreover, the exceptional educational opportunities in Faribault have played a pivotal role in shaping my path to leadership. From the halls of Jefferson to Faribault High School and the mentorship of dedicated educators and coaches, I received an education enriched with knowledge, values, and opportunities for personal growth. The investment in education in Faribault has equipped me with the tools and skills necessary to pursue my passions and make a meaningful impact in my community and beyond. As I accept this prestigious award, I do so with profound gratitude to my classmates, my faith community, and the educators and coaches who have contributed to my journey. It is a testament to the collective strength of our community and the values of friendship, faith, and education that have guided me along the way. In closing, I'm deeply honored to receive the Faribault High School Distinguished Alumni Award. Let us continue to cherish the bonds of friendship, nurture our faith, and champion excellence in education as we strive to make a positive difference in the world. Thank you.
Our sixth honoree is Sandy K. Paddock. She was nominated by her sister, Deb Timmers, who will introduce her. Deb, are you ready? Watch out for the mic.
I'm extremely proud to be here tonight to introduce my sister to you, Sandra K. Paddock. Over the years, Sandy has been such an inspiration to me. There's 4 kids in our family, and I'm the oldest girl. We have an older brother, and then myself, and then my sister Linda, and then Sandy was the baby. So you think as the oldest sister, I should be the one that's setting all the examples. But in our family, that person was Sandy, and I'm very grateful to her for that. She was the first person in our family to graduate from college. When we grew up, our family had enough money to eat, but we didn't have a lot of extra money to go around, so the thought of college never seemed like it was possible. And to make matters worse, we came from the North End hoods. And you know, nobody can be good that comes from the North End hoods. So Sandy set out to prove everybody wrong. She demonstrated the importance of lifelong learning. She didn't just go on to go to college. She didn't go to college straight out of high school. She became a mother at a young age, and with 2 young children, she decided, you know what? I can be a good mother, and I can be a good wife, and I can also have a profession. And so she started working nights at MSAD as a janitor in the evenings, even though she had to deal with those ghosts in Noyes Hall late at night. But she worked hard so that she could earn her college, first starting out becoming a nurse, and then continuing her college. She has so many numerous degrees, I've lost count of them all. Each time that she got another degree, it helped her to be able to provide a better service for all the people she served, whether it's as a nurse practitioner. She has been a teacher in both the nursing program here in Faribault and now in the nursing practitioner program through Winona State College. She has given me so much inspiration that I decided way back at the age of 35 that I too could go to college and have a profession. And I think if it had not been for her leadership in our family, I would have never had the courage to do that. And now she's gotten me to be a lifelong learner. She's a remarkable woman. She's very dedicated to what she does. But it's not just her work. She has a heart of gold. And she's got a special table behind us today to just show how she has kept in contact with her classmates ever since they graduated. Every year they still make a point to get together with everyone. And I just think that's really remarkable. How many of us lose touch with our high school friends? We might have our college friends, but we forget about the high school friends. but not Sandy. Everybody that she has touched is important to her. And through her career and her life, she has touched many people. And so it is with great pride and honor. And I feel blessed to be your sister, and I'm so proud that I can call you up as a winner of this award, Sandra K. Paddock.
I guess I'm going to start out recognizing people that have been important to me and that have helped me get to where I am today. You know, it takes a village. I was not the valedictorian of my class. I was not a cheerleader. I really had no fame in high school. And I just learned early on that you had to work hard to get what you wanted. And so I want to recognize people who have shaped my life. And I would like to start out with my first teachers, who were my parents. My parents taught me the importance of being responsible, showing up at a job when you're supposed to. And they taught me the importance of paying your bills. As my sister said, we didn't have much money. I recall my mother constantly sitting at the table, drinking coffee, trying to figure out how to borrow from Peter to pay Paul. And so I think very early on I became very kind of conservative and very careful about planning because, well, I like to eat. Both of my parents were blue-collar workers, and they often worked 2 jobs to support our family. And I didn't really understand how important that was at the time. But when I look back and I think about my dad having 2 jobs almost from the time I can remember, I really appreciate what my parents did for me and the morals that they taught me. My first job was babysitting at age 11, followed by detasseling corn at age 13. And Lisa knows what detasseling corn is about. Barely a little over 5 feet tall. Good thing she had a tall friend. And if you've never detasseled corn, you don't know what you're missing. Sometimes we got watermelon at the end of the day. We'd show up with our lunch at Central Park and get on a bus, and we had a bucket with our food in it, a meager lunch, and they worked us like crazy. And they gave us salt pills. You know, I don't even know if they got permission from my parents. And now I'm wondering, you know, they could have screwed up my electrolytes, you know? But I survived that. I worked as a waitress, I worked as a car hop, and my boss at the Blue Light Drive-In saw, you know, I had potential, so he set me up to be the fryer. Not many girls got to be the fryer. So I did a pretty good job at that, and I kind of had to move on after that. I needed a new challenge. Well, when I got my driver's license, I wanted a car. So there was a goal. I needed a better job, a job with more hours. And I decided to apply at Mahler's Hardware. And apparently, J.B. Warren asked Rod Mahler about my performance or what he thought about giving me a chance. Well, I hope he gave me a good recommendation because Rod did give me a chance. And Rod has been one of those people, you talk about your Mount Rushmore. I have always, my whole life, looked up to Rod. Very respectful person. Other people who are important to me are in the audience today. My husband, Mark, my daughter, Heidi, and my son, Charlie, could not be here today, but he's here in thought. I appreciate so much the job of being a mother, one of the hardest jobs in the world, but one of the most rewarding for sure. And then being able to be a grandma is just icing on the cake. I also have here my sister Debbie, who nominated me, and my sister Linda, and my lifetime friend Michelle, which I call Shelley. And then, by surprise, I've got 5 of my classmates here that surprised me and showed up to support me. And they were going to be in my speech whether they were here or not. I have so many wonderful teachers that I remember. I can't name them all, primarily because I'm getting older now. But some of them are no longer here. But I do remember my first teacher, which was Mrs. Duzbabic at McKinley School. And I remember Miss Beatty and Miss Lake. And this was in grade school. And I'm going to date myself now, but this was back when girls had to wear dresses to school. And then we'd wear pants under our dresses. And not all sports were offered for females. And I think, wow, how times have changed. How cool was that watching Caitlin Clark? I have great memories from the school lunches. Like at elementary school, they were real food back then, and real lunch ladies cooked the food. In junior high, I liked Mr. Sturmer because I thought he was funny, and he was young. The old junior high was a pretty cool building. I liked all the neat little nooks. However, it smelled like pancake syrup, and we all presumed it was something the boys were putting on the radiators. I enjoyed being in band, and later the marching band. Mr. Hamilton was a great band leader who took a lot of us to Canada, and that was a great trip. It was band where I met many of my lifelong friends who are here tonight. And I think back and think about how different my life would have been if I wasn't in band, because that creates your lunch hour. It creates so many different things. And I know my sister Debbie's jealous because I was the youngest kid, and well, they had enough money to pay rent on a clarinet by the time they only had one kid at home. But I'm so grateful for band because I met some of my lifelong friends. I would say I really did not apply myself in high school. As I said before, I didn't win any awards there. I like to call myself a solid B student. And I'm not sure if I was bored or depressed or just lost. However, I've always enjoyed being active, and I looked forward to Phi Ed because it was an easy A. I was in basketball and track until a knee surgery affected my performance. And one thing I struggle with is if I can't be good, then I don't really want to do it. I played in softball for many summers, which I really loved. And I would be remiss to talk about high school without mentioning J.B. Warren. J.B. knew most of us by name, but usually called us by our last name. He was gruff, and he presented as a mean fellow. He made you toe the line. Bachman, what are you doing? It was really tough to pull anything over on him, but trust me, it can be done. You knew when he was walking the halls, you could hear his keys jingle. He once gave me a reference for a job, and he never let me forget it. Bachman, I gave you that reference. Don't let me down. Well, I had no plans to continue my education after high school. For one thing, I thought it was only an option for kids who had parents with money. And as crazy as it sounds, I honestly didn't know you could take out loans. I didn't know you could get grants. Maybe I would have tried harder in school. I just thought what we did in our family was get a job. And so I got a job. I got a full-time job working at the deaf school as a general maintenance worker 1, and I hit the lottery, $5.25 an hour with benefits. I had a family, so that was really a good thing for our family, health insurance. And after a year of cleaning and spending my days isolated, I began to think I could do more, and I wanted to be around people. I was lonely. I would take a radio around with me just because it was very quiet. I enrolled in the South Central College nursing program back then. It was Faribault Area Vocational Technical Institute. And I went into the nursing program. And it was Mrs. Helen Ozzie, as the program director, who showed me the kind of nurse that I wanted to be. She was bright, she was kind, she was empathetic, and she just emulated what most nurses should be. And that experience, I began a lifelong journey of helping others and continuous learning, always wanting to know more. I earned that diploma in nursing from South Central College, and then I was a little disappointed because I wanted to know it all. So I went and I got a 2-year degree, and I thought, now I'm an RN. I know it all. Not. Actually, the more education you get, the more you realize, oh my God, I don't know enough. So I just basically kept taking steps, just steps, not all at once, just climbing the ladder. And so I went on to earn nurse practitioner certificates in both mental health and family nurse practitioner. One other thing I'd like to mention, not only do we have a good education in Faribault, Minnesota, I really am a product of the state of Minnesota education, and I'm really a supporter for that. 6 of my 7 degrees were earned at Minnesota State colleges, and I have gotten great education at each one of them. I feel like I've come full circle. I was a nurse for many years at the bedside. I worked at District 1 for many years, and then it was Phyllis Wagner from South Central College who asked me to substitute, and I substituted and did that, worked 2 jobs. Wonder where I learned that. So I worked 2 jobs for probably 25 years, because if you're a teacher, you have to practice so that you're a good teacher. And so I taught at the nursing program in the undergrad program at South Central College for 11 years. And then after I got my nurse practitioner, I went into practice. And as I wanted to move back closer to Faribault, I started looking for positions as a nurse practitioner or as an educator, and there was a position open at Winona State University. And I always feel that I've come full circle because that's where I graduated from with some of my higher degrees. And so I'm very proud to work at a Minnesota State college, and I educate future advanced practice nurses. And I maintain an active practice. I work 1 day a week at the Ritchie Eye Clinic in Faribault. I'm active in many professional organizations. I'm the former president of the Minnesota Nurse Practitioner Organization. I'm a member of the National Nurse Practitioner Association, Sigma Theta Tau Honor Society, and I serve as a board member for Bridges Health of Winona, which is a student-led, faculty supervised clinic for low-income individuals, offering health screening and health services to those who cannot afford it. I have also earned an Outstanding Alumni Award from South Central College and the Nursing Research Award at the St. Cloud Hospital. I recently got my first publication in a peer-reviewed nursing journal, and that has been one of my career goals. So I'm happy to say that this allows me to say check mark, and I'm getting closer to retirement. And my friend always says I'm never going to stop going to school, but I am going to stop going to school, but I'm not going to stop learning. So I want to thank my sister Debbie, who nominated me, and I'd like to thank the selection committee as well. And I am humbled and honored to be among the other distinguished alumni, and thank you very much.
David Sauer, our 7th honoree, will be introduced by someone who knows him very well, his wife. Chris?
Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Chris Sauer. I am indeed the spouse of David. Congratulations to all of the fellow nominees. It is indeed a distinguished group. David is a fascinating product of his family and support system, as well as the educational system here. He's also a fabulous example of how you can really, truly dream big and have an impact not only locally, but nationally and internationally. David, in 2019, retired from the Central Intelligence Agency. He spent decades executing intelligence activities in multiple overseas locations, including Taiwan, Japan, Cambodia, and Pakistan. I noticed that he left off Manila when we nominated you. Yeah, we forgot Manila. Don't know why. Anyway, during his career, which was quite distinguished, David served in command positions in multiple locations, working against counterintelligence, counterterrorism, counterproliferation, and cyber threats facing our nation, with multiple tours of duty as chief of station and deputy chief of station. Concurrent to his leadership as chief of station, he also served as the director for national intelligence in multiple overseas locations as well, enabling and coordinating all U.S. intelligence activity in the areas of operation role. His role also included providing the embassy where he worked, the chief of mission there, with information, guidance, and support related to intelligence operations in the respective areas. All told, 26 years later, David had that career in the federal government. He was assigned overseas for 18 years, had the distinct privilege of accompanying him on most, but not all of those assignments. Our children had the distinct opportunity to spend a great deal of time overseas as well. In March of 2017, David achieved the highest honor awarded to a Central Intelligence Officer. He was promoted to the Senior Intelligence Service, roughly equivalent to a U.S. military brigade general for those in the audience who have some understanding of military ranks. David is currently serving as a consultant to a variety of national and international and multinational organizations, providing, as you might expect, high-level analysis on matters related to Asia, his area of expertise. It is my distinct honor to introduce you to my husband, David Sauer.
Well, thank you, everybody, and thank you, Chris, for that wonderful introduction. I really appreciate it. Now, how should I say this? I just want to congratulate all the other awardees this evening. Your careers are amazing. It's been really interesting to read and try to listen to all your speeches. And I say try to listen because I've been trying to figure out what I'm going to say tonight. So I've been listening, and you guys are really a product of Faribault Senior High and the community of Faribault. And I want to thank the committee as well. Thank you very much for this award. It really means a lot. And so thank you very much. Now, there's no question, folks, that the Faribault Public School System and the community of Faribault gave me the foundation for the potential of future success. But I've had some help along the way, believe me, and most notably from my wife, Chris, who 30 plus years ago rashly agreed to marry me and stood by me through long separations, earthquakes, super typhoons, and social chaos happening in the countries some of the countries we were assigned to. When our first tour actually was in Manila, the Philippines, as Chris was mentioning. We arrived there late. You arrive in East Asia, usually when you fly from the United States, you arrive quite late at night. And we were picked up by the embassy and sent to our apartment. And because you're jet lagged beyond belief, you get up And you can't sleep, so we got up and watched the sunrise. And folks, as the sun rose, I could look out over our window, over into our neighborhood, and it was the largest shanty town I've ever seen. And I thought to myself, oh my God, what have I done to my poor wife? Later that day, our sponsors hosted us for brunch at the Seafront Embassy compound. And after brunch, the main sponsor, Derek, offered to give us a bit of a ride, walking tour outside the compound gate. So it's 90+ degrees out, very humid. And he warned us, he said, you got to be very careful about pickpockets and stuff, so secure your valuables as you go out into the neighborhood. Now, the Vikings had a fumbling problem this past year. If Chris were on the football team, there would have been no fumbling. She had her bag wrapped and she was ready to go, and she walked through that neighborhood like nobody's business. Now, as Chris mentioned, we've been blessed with two daughters, Elizabeth and Caroline, who are here this evening. And thus far in their young lives, and I do say thus far, they're doing pretty good, and that's really a credit to their mother. When they were little, we served in Beijing at the U.S. Embassy there, and you guys maybe understand this, but our apartment is bugged by the Beijing State Security Bureau, and they probably have video coverage of our apartment. So in order to communicate sometimes, and usually not very often, we would write messages to each other back and forth. And so we would write them, and then we would tear them up and put them in the poopy diaper bag. And we thought, if you guys really want those messages, you can have them. So please, go ahead and take them. And hopefully they did, because they said nothing. But they would have gone through a little bit of pain to get them. Now, Chris is right. I was promoted into the Senior Intelligence Service. And for CIA, that is, it is a big deal. The promotion ceremony is hosted by the director. In my case, it was for Michael Pompeo, the director at the time, and the deputy director, a future CIA director, Gina Haspel, was there as well. Now, they have the ceremony, and then they have a reception afterwards, and so you get a few tickets to invite people to come. And of course, I wanted my wife to be there, but I also wanted my two daughters to come as well. But the fact is, they didn't know where I worked. So how do I tell them? And I was serving in Taipei at the time. The girls were in Minnesota. They were in Faribault. And I was like, well, when I pick them up at the airport, we'll go on the Dulles Toll Road, and I'll tell them in the rental car. Because if they start carrying on, at least they won't be in public. And I kind of have a bit of a controlled environment for them. Okay. So I'll try to give you the full flavor of what happened when that took place. So we're driving down the road. I say, okay, girls, tomorrow morning we have to get up really early. We're going into CIA headquarters. We're going to a promotion ceremony. And so we have to be ready really early to get in there. I think somebody looked up from their phone and went, what? So I repeated it again. Girls, tomorrow morning, I work for CIA. We're going into CIA headquarters, and we're going to go to a promotion ceremony. We have to be ready really early. Wait, what? What? Dad, I'm shook. I think that means I was surprised. I'm not quite sure, but I'm pretty sure that's what it meant. And that kind of went on for a while. And then one of them chimed in and said, you know what? I really don't care. Where are we going for dinner tonight? So I'll let you try to figure out which one of them said which during that little bit of an exchange. So it was a great honor to have him in there for the ceremony, and something I always remember. Now, folks, my mom and dad came to Faribault many, many years ago. They came here when they were 25 and 23 years old. And they're here tonight. They're going on 92 and 90. And you know what? Somehow they've been able to live that long, and they didn't live on the east side of Faribault. So, as Roger well knows. Now, many of you probably were my dad's patients. He worked for a long time, practiced dentistry for over 40 years. And the truth be told, he loved to be doing it today. He loved his patients, and he really loved talking to every one of you. And I think he really enjoyed it because he could have his hands in your mouth and talk to you, and you guys couldn't talk back. So I think it was perfect for him. My mom, you know, she's a huge reader, loves to read, and she instilled that into her children. But, you know, she was taking care of us, but she was also very busy with other things. Like for 50 plus years, she's been a member of the Monday Club and the most secretive organization I've ever heard of, the PEO. Now, in our house, there was, I would say, there was an expectation you would try hard at school. Now, if you didn't do so well, I was okay as long as you tried hard, you know? And, you know, there wasn't much pressure put on us. But for me, I think in 7th or 8th grade, I got a D+ in science. And suddenly that expectation and urgency was up front and center. Now, folks, I've served all over the place. I've dealt with foreign intelligence heads. I've dealt with congressmen, you name it, senior officials. I still hear about that D+, probably on a yearly basis. Now, I was very fortunate to have an older brother and an older sister to be the trailblazers through junior high and senior high, which, you know, as the younger brother going into junior high, that was kind of scary. Now, my older brother, and some of you are probably thinking, Paul is older than David? Yes, he is. I know he's a good-looking, handsome guy, and I've been kind of blessed with the Coke bottle glasses. And my sister pulled out a lot of my hair when I was younger, but we'll save that story. It's great to have the power of the microphone. But my brother had a very successful career in sales, but truly, he's been more successful in his personal life. My sister, my older sister, she just retired probably 3 weeks ago from UCARE, the nonprofit organization, and she was a senior marketing executive for them. Although she's a senior marketing executive for UCARE, I think of her as a Faribault Falcon cheerleader. Why? Why? Because she used to practice those cheers outside our house or inside our house, and we have this little dog, Fred, who's infamous in our neighborhood, who would be barking and carrying on. Oh my God, what a racket. So I'm sure Margie would love to come up and give us some cheers and lead us into the fight song. But no, we don't have time for that this evening. But truly, I think our whole family would say we've been blessed to live in Faribault, and we had wonderful neighbors that we lived by, and also the parents of my friends. They were such good role models and very supportive of all of us kids. And so I have to say the Erickson family, Roger and Jean, the Hacker family of Bill and Joy, Bob and Mickey Speckles, the Wellborn family, the Kirkshank family, the Busalis family. They were wonderful people and really made a difference in a young guy's life as you're growing up in this community. Now, a class of 1984. We were not, we had a discussion about this the other day, how our class was kind of thought of kind of a dud class. And you know, maybe. We didn't have the great sports teams, but we had some fabulous individual athletes. And folks, frankly, one of the first awardees of this class is a class of 1984, Dr. Bill Bodke, an astrophysicist from NASA. But we had 2 other PhDs in my class, at least that I'm aware of, and that would be Scott DeMars, who's a PhD in laser physics, as well as Scott Cruikshank, who is a PhD in psychobiology, and he's teaching in Alabama at a university. We've had educators, and there's two of them here tonight, Mrs. Ellen Paulson and Mrs. Gail Cole, who made significant differences in their students. My friend Alex Busalis, who he and his business partners bought this company called Cadillac Casting in Cadillac, Michigan. They employ over 500 people, and that when they bought it, it was about to go out of business. So Cadillac, Michigan is about 10,000 people in a population. You have employees, about 5% of the population works at that Cadillac Casting. And so Alex really made a huge contribution to his community. Our friend Jeff Schultz just won a farming award last year and is doing great. And our state senator, John Jasinski, class of 1984, just saying the class of 1984 has made significant contributions to our community, to the state, and to the nation. So they've done an outstanding job. So I'm very proud to be amongst them. Now, folks, Faribault Public Schools, I had some outstanding teachers. And several of the awardees have mentioned Mr. Harvey Schultz, who told me I had to call him Harvey again tonight, but I can't do it. It's Mr. Schultz. I have to do it. And now, what set him apart was that we had functions, and functions is a hard subject. And he would open his house, open up his house to his students to be tutored. And so we would have what we called functions parties. We'd go up and sit there and puzzle over these problems, and he'd patiently try to describe what was taking place. But how about Donna Schultz for opening up their house to all these bedraggled teenagers to have them come up there? I mean, my God, she was a saint. Mr. Hohentanner, our chemistry teacher, somehow I'm a chemistry major in college, but somehow he made chemistry all that more enjoyable. He had a hockey stick he carried around. I mean, he was just a funny guy, and he was a wonderful teacher, and he's sorely missed. Mr. Tetzloff, who, whenever I came home and he saw me, he would always come up and talk to me and see how I was doing, where I was. He was a wonderful man, and he's sorely missed. Miss Williams, who was tough as nails as a social studies teacher. She was tough, but a great teacher. And I think I have a separate story about her, what I won't go into, but she was a wonderful teacher. And then in junior high, Mrs. Teisberg, who was our social studies teacher, she was a phenomenal teacher and opened our eyes to the world around us. So really respected her a lot. In elementary school, Diane the Rev Clapp was our fantastic teacher. And I had her she was just starting out her career, and she was Diane Revlin that time, hence the Rev. We used to call her that. And she was so nice about it. She allowed us to be kind of funny about some of those things. And so she was a fantastic teacher. And then Miss Johnson at Jefferson Elementary School, we would have these flashcard contests, and she'd hold up the flashcard, and you had to tell the multiplication or division problem, and you would have these contests, and it was quite raucous, but it was a lot of fun. So I just want to again thank the committee for this award. And I want to congratulate the other members of this incoming class. You really are amazing. And finally, I just want to say God bless the United States. So thank you all very much. Thank you.
After their 50th high school reunion, a group decided to nominate from their own class. So Chris Warren, we recognize that name, don't we, Warren? Samsel, a high school classmate, introduces her person, Brian Shellum.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
There you go, dear. Thanks. Good evening. My first memory of Brian Shellum
is from 3rd or 4th grade at Jefferson Elementary. I sat next to Brian and another classmate named Charles, and they tormented me by singing a jingle. Now, some of you from the 60s will remember Crispy Critters. It was a cereal that had pink elephants, and there was a very catchy jingle about eating Crispy Critters with pink elephants real soon. So, kids were supposed to then get their parents to buy Crispy Critters. Well, Brian has moved on from cereal jingles, and as you can tell from his bio, he has accomplished a great deal since elementary school. Being the first student from Faribault High School to be accepted, attend, and graduate from West Point. Since West Point, Brian has served our country as an Army officer, a military attaché, and when I asked him about that, I go, "What do you do?" And he said, "I'm a spy." He was a government historian and also an intelligence officer. As a civilian, or in his retirement, Brian has continued to work as a researcher, a writer, and a historian. And in fact, his 5th book will be published this coming summer, and he told me that he has his 6th one approximately 1/3 done already. But what you should also know about Brian is that he's a voracious reader, an excellent conversationalist, interested in people and their stories, and an excellent storyteller. He also possesses a sense of adventure, a sense of playfulness, and a wonderful sense of humor that is very evident if you get him to laugh, because he has a very distinctive and engaging laugh. In other words, what can I say? He's a pretty fun guy. The one last thing I think you should know about Brian, and I just have to interject, it's been very nice to hear things about my father, but I want to say something about my mother, Lorraine Warren. When Brian was in 8th grade, his English and social studies teacher was my mother, Lorraine Warren. And I know as a former teacher of Brian's, she would be very pleased and very proud to know that he was awarded the Distinguished Alumni Award, because Brian was always one of her favorites. So, congratulations, Brian.
Well, I'm well aware that I'm the only thing between you and the door, so I'm going to keep it short. I want to thank Chris for nominating me and the committee for approving that nomination, and thanks for everyone being here tonight, especially my 3 tables full of classmates and their spouses back there. I'm really honored to be recognized. Aside from meeting my wonderful wife, on a blind kayak day 24 years ago, I'm most grateful for 2 things. And the first thing is growing up in Faribault, and the second thing is the opportunity to attend and graduate from West Point. I wasn't born here. I was born in Oshkosh, Wisconsin, just up the road from Green Bay, which is kind of an awkward thing for a Vikings fan. But I was an Army brat. I grew up as an Army brat. Before I moved here, I lived in Sendai, Japan, in Georgia, and in Seoul, Korea. But I landed here in 3rd grade, and I found it a great place to grow up. And I want to talk about friends and teachers. And Chris has already kind of spilled the beans on one of the teachers. But friends first. Many of my friends are here. I've known a whole bunch of them since I was in the 3rd grade, the year I landed in Faribault in 1962. And others I met later on in junior high school and high school. But I've learned over the years, I always come back here. I try to get back every year at least. And I've learned how important friends are. And many of them are my dearest. And you know you have a friend when you can not see them for 20 years and you come back and you just fall right in where you left off. It's just amazing. And many of my good friends there are teachers. I'd say more than half of them. So you can also get that teacher award thing we've been talking about tonight. And I was inspired by a teacher. I guess I was inspired by a lot of teachers, but I'm going to pick Lorraine Warren as one to represent them. After I landed in junior high school in 8th grade, I had her for history, social studies, and English. And she planted the seed for my future love of writing and history. She saw something in me that I didn't see at the time, and you know, and I didn't realize it then, but I certainly realized it later that she planted that seed that would sprout later on. So I thank Lorraine and the many other wonderful teachers I had here. And what I gained here academically, and I agree with everything everybody said about academic credentials and sports and about leadership, kind of paved the way, earned my nomination to West Point. And then at West Point, I gained another group of friends who I guess are my second most important group of friends, those friends I made at West Point. And I suppose I wouldn't be here if it weren't for the fact that I later, after 20 years in the Army and 20 years doing, I don't think I ever said a spy. I'm sure I said I was an intelligence officer at the embassy. Military officers are diplomatically credentialed, and they're not spies. They're intelligence officers. But after those 40 years of government service, part of my government civilian service, I was a historian for 12 years. So I really feel that this country and the government gave me a lot for 40 years, and so what I'm doing now is I research and write, and I'm this is part of my life where I'm giving back. And I find myself here, a guy who grew up in Minnesota, one of the leading scholars of Buffalo Soldiers and Black military history. Now, if you had told me that 52 years ago when I graduated from West Point, I would have told you were crazy. But here I stand, about to publish my 5th book. So it's been quite a journey, and I thank you all, and I thank you for this honor.
Quite a lineup, wasn't it? Yes. After tonight, our honorees continue to be acknowledged as high flyers. If you were lucky enough to take the tour with Mark Silverwood to senior high, you saw the Hall of Fame. Along that's just outside the counselor's office. And the write-up you have in your little booklet, that's on a plaque outside. And we'll have 38 of them when we get them all organized. Also, there is a plaque, and these pictures over here are in Michael Hansen's theater. You know, the entryway in there? We have the plaque there listing all the honorees and their pictures. The pictures are just for the latest one, so you 8 people are in the hallway, look out. Okay, couple of things. Finally, the Faribault Alumni Award Committee thanks you for supporting us and coming tonight. This is the biggest crowd we've ever had, so thank you. And thank you all for coming. See you next year.